Respect isn't something people just hand out. It's something you earn. But what if, without even realizing it, you're pushing people away? What if your own habits are quietly stripping away the respect others once had for you? These aren't small quirks or harmless personality traits. They are the kind of behaviors that rot your reputation from the inside out. The kind that make people look at you differently, trust you less, and eventually walk away. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize they're doing it. You might think, everyone has bad habits. What's the big deal? True, but not all habits are equal. Some can be annoying, while others can be destructive. These toxic patterns don't just affect how others see you, they shape your entire life. They can ruin friendships, kill opportunities, and make you wonder why no one seems to take you seriously. I know this because I've been there. I've made these mistakes myself. And trust me, the price of ignorance is steep. That's why I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm here to show you how these habits silently destroy respect and, more importantly, how you can break free from them before it's too late. To do this, we'll lean on Stoicism, an ancient philosophy built on wisdom, discipline, and self-respect. The Stoics knew the key to earning respect wasn't about demanding it. It was about embodying it. They believed that if you controlled yourself, you could control how the world responded to you. So, get comfortable. This might be a tough pill to swallow, but it could also be the wake-up call you need. Let's get into it, starting with one of the worst respect-killing habits: gossiping. 1. Loose lips sink ships. The high price of gossip. Gossip is like a wildfire. It spreads fast, burns trust, and leaves nothing but ashes behind. It's a habit so common that most people don't even realize they're doing it. But make no mistake, every time you speak about someone else's business, you're not just talking. You're slowly poisoning the trust others have in you. I used to be the worst at this. Back in college, gossiping felt like a bonding experience, a way to feel connected. My friends and I would sit for hours picking apart people's lives, laughing at their mistakes, and acting as if we had some sort of moral high ground. At the time, it felt harmless, even entertaining. But looking back, I realize how destructive it was. There was a girl in our group. Let's call her Emily. She was different, quieter, more introverted. She didn't always fit in, and maybe that made her an easy target. One day, I found out she had a crush on a guy who, by social standards, was out of her league. Instead of keeping that to myself, I shared it with my friends. We laughed, we exaggerated, and before I knew it, the story had traveled beyond our circle. When Emily found out, the pain on her face was something I'll never forget. She didn't lash out. She didn't scream. She just disappeared from our lives, withdrawing from the group entirely. We never saw her again. And while I pretended it wasn't a big deal, deep down, I knew I had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly. Epictetus. The Stoics were right. Words are powerful, and misusing them can destroy the very foundation of trust. When you gossip, you don't just harm the person you talk about. You also damage your own reputation. People may laugh with you in the moment, but a seed of doubt is planted in their minds. If they talk about others like this, what do they say about me when I'm not around? Years later, I paid the price for my habit in a way that stung even deeper. At my first job, I had a coworker. Let's call him John. He was incredibly hardworking, but kept to himself. One day, through the office grapevine, I learned something personal about him. He had a serious health condition. Instead of respecting his privacy, I casually shared it with a few colleagues. It wasn't meant to be cruel. I thought it was just an interesting topic. But John found out. He didn't yell. He didn't try to humiliate me. He just looked at me with quiet disappointment, the kind that hits harder than any words could. "I trusted you," he said. That was it. A short sentence that cut deeper than any insult. From that day on, everything changed. He never looked at me the same way. Conversations were cold, interactions distant. I had lost his trust completely, and there was no getting it back. And that's the thing about gossip. It's a betrayal in disguise. It may feel small in the moment, but the damage it does is permanent. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius. The truth is, gossip is a cheap way to feel important. It gives the illusion of power, of control. But in reality, it reveals insecurity. It shows a lack of discipline, a lack of wisdom. Strong people don't waste time tearing others down. They build themselves up instead. So, before you share someone else's business, ask yourself, is this kind? Is this necessary? Would I want this said about me? Because if the answer is no, then maybe the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. 2. A house built on sand. The hidden cost of being unreliable. Imagine standing on a bridge that looks sturdy, only to realize halfway across that it's crumbling beneath your feet. That's what it feels like to trust an unreliable person. You think you can count on them, but when it matters most, they let you fall. And when people can't depend on you, they don't just feel disappointed. They lose respect for you entirely. Reliability isn't just a virtue. It's the foundation of trust. Without it, relationships, careers, and reputations fall apart. You might be charming, talented, even brilliant, but if people can't rely on you, none of that matters. I learned this lesson the hard way. In my early 20s, I was the kind of person who made plans and then broke them without a second thought. If something more interesting came up, I'd change my mind last minute. I'd tell myself, it's not a big deal. People understand. Life is busy. But in reality, I was teaching people that my word meant nothing. One moment still stings. My friend Sarah had been planning her birthday for weeks, booking the venue, organizing everything down to the last detail. She was excited, and I told her, I'll be there. But on the day of the party, I got caught up in something else. I didn't feel like going. I told myself I'd send her a quick text later. Hours passed before I finally called her. I expected her to brush it off. She didn't. She wasn't angry. She was just disappointed. And that disappointment was worse than any argument. The way her voice lost its warmth, the way she stopped inviting me to things afterward. It hit me. She had counted on me, and I had failed her. Our friendship never fully recovered, and all because I treated my promises like they didn't matter. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. But I didn't just lose personal relationships. I made the same mistake in my career. Early on, I had a bad habit of saying yes to everything. I wanted to impress my boss, so I took on more than I could handle. I'd miss deadlines, make last-minute excuses, and assume my charm would smooth things over. Then came my performance review. My boss looked me straight in the eye and said, "Your work is good when you actually do it, but no one knows if they can count on you." That hit like a punch to the gut. My excuses didn't matter. My talent didn't matter. All that mattered was my track record, and it was a mess. I wasn't just unreliable, I was sabotaging my own future. Reliability isn't just about showing up. It's about being the kind of person whose word means something. When you say you'll do something, you do it. When you make a promise, you keep it. Every broken commitment chips away at your reputation until there's nothing left. And let's be honest, being unreliable isn't just about hurting others. It hurts you. The opportunities you lose, the doors that close, the people who stop trusting you, it all adds up. You might not feel the damage right away, but it's happening. Slowly, silently, but surely. So, how do you fix it? First, be honest with yourself. Don't make promises you can't keep just to please people in the moment. If you can't commit to something, say no up front instead of failing later. Second, follow through. If you say you'll be there, be there. If you say you'll do something, do it. Not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. That's where real character is built. And finally, communicate. Life happens. Sometimes you genuinely can't follow through. When that happens, don't wait until the last minute to say something. Show people that you respect their time enough to be honest with them. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Seneca. When you become someone people can rely on, everything changes. You earn trust. You gain respect. You build a reputation that opens doors instead of closing them. And all it takes is keeping your word. 3. Cutting people off. Cuts you off, the hidden cost of interrupting. Interrupting isn't just annoying, it's a silent killer of respect. It sends one loud message. What I have to say matters more than what you're saying. It might not seem like a big deal, but when you constantly cut people off, you're not just stealing their words. You're robbing them of the chance to be heard. And when people feel unheard, they stop valuing your presence. I used to think interrupting showed enthusiasm, that it proved I was engaged, sharp, and quick-witted. But I was wrong. It took a brutal reality check to make me see the damage I was doing. At one of my early jobs, we had weekly brainstorming meetings. I was eager to prove myself, always jumping in with my ideas before others could even finish speaking. In my mind, I was just being proactive. But in reality, I was stepping over people, dismissing their thoughts without even realizing it. One day, my manager had enough. She cut the discussion short, looked straight at me, and said, "You need to let people finish their thoughts. You're not listening. You're just waiting for your turn to talk." That alone was embarrassing, but what hit even harder came right after. A colleague pulled me aside and said, "Do you even realize how dismissive you sound? It's like you think your ideas are the only ones that matter." I was stunned. That's not how I saw myself. But perception is everything. It didn't matter what my intentions were. What mattered was how people felt around me. And they felt unheard, undervalued, and overlooked. 2 ears, 1 mouth, for a reason. Listen more, talk less. Zeno of Citium. That moment forced me to reflect, and I realized interrupting isn't just about talking over people, it's a sign of a deeper issue, lack of self-control. It shows impatience, a need to dominate, and a failure to respect the flow of conversation. It happened again, outside of work, in a way that hit even harder. One night, I was out with friends, and one of them was sharing something deeply personal, his struggles with anxiety. Halfway through his story, I jumped in, eager to relate. "I know exactly what you mean. I went through something similar." He stopped mid-sentence, looked at me, and said, "Can I finish?" The entire mood shifted. The moment was his, and I had taken it away. What I thought was empathy came across as self-centered. I wasn't helping. I was hijacking his moment. That night, I learned something powerful. Listening isn't about hearing words. It's about being present. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Stephen R. Covey. When you interrupt, you're not just cutting off words. You're cutting off connection. You make people feel like their voice doesn't matter, like they're just background noise in your world. Over time, this chips away at respect. And before you know it, people stop wanting to talk to you at all. So how do you break this habit? First, slow down. Let people finish their thoughts. If you feel the urge to jump in, take a breath instead. The extra second of silence won't kill you, but constantly interrupting will kill your reputation. Second, listen to understand, not just to respond. Pay attention to what's actually being said, not just to the point where you can insert your opinion. Because real respect isn't in what you say, it's in how well you listen. And finally, remember this. Every conversation is a chance to show people they matter. If you can't control your impulse to interrupt, what you're really telling them is they don't. 4. Drowning in negativity. Why complaining repels respect. Nobody likes a complainer. It's one of those habits that slowly pushes people away without you even realizing it. At first, people might listen, nod, and even join in. But over time, they get tired. They stop responding. They avoid you. And before you know it, you've built a reputation. Not as someone who's insightful or interesting, but as someone who drags the energy down in every room they enter. I know this because I used to be that person. A few years ago, I worked a job I hated. The workload was too much, the management was all over the place, and I felt like I wasn't appreciated. Every day, I found something new to complain about, and I made sure everyone around me knew it. My coworkers, my friends, my family. At first, they sympathized. They'd nod along, offer their own frustrations, and for a moment, I felt understood. But then, something changed. Conversations became shorter. People stopped inviting me to hangouts after work. And then one day, a close friend looked me in the eye and said, "I love you, but you're exhausting to be around." That hit me like a brick. I wasn't just venting, I was draining the life out of the people around me. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. That moment made me realize something important. Complaining isn't just annoying, it's a sign of weakness. It tells the world, I'd rather dwell on problems than fix them. And that's not a trait people respect. I saw this from the other side during a college group project. We had a teammate, let's call him Mike, who complained about everything. The workload was unfair. The professor was incompetent. The project was pointless. And guess what? His negativity spread like a virus. Nobody wanted to put in effort anymore. We just wanted to get the work over with and escape. That's when it clicked. Complaining isn't just about the person doing it. It drags everyone else down with them. So, I decided to change. Instead of complaining about my job, I started identifying solutions. If I felt undervalued, I asked for feedback on how to improve. If management was disorganized, I focused on what I could control. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. But something incredible started happening. People treated me differently. My relationships improved. I earned back the respect I had lost. And the biggest shift? I actually felt better. Because instead of giving my energy to problems, I was putting it toward solutions. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. The truth is, everyone has problems. But what separates the strong from the weak is how they handle them. The weak complain, the strong act. And if you want to be respected, admired, and valued, you have to decide. Do you want to be the person people seek out, or the one they avoid? Now, if you found this message valuable, do something about it. Take control of your mindset. And if you want more content like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's commit to living stronger, more respectable lives. Until next time, stay strong, stay stoic. 5. The echo chamber of misery. Why complaining destroys respect. Nobody respects a chronic complainer. Sure, people might listen at first, nod along, and even add their own frustrations to the mix. But soon enough, they start avoiding you. They stop picking up your calls. Conversations get shorter. Why? Because negativity is contagious, and no one wants to be dragged down with you. I learned this lesson the hard way. A few years back, I was stuck in a job I absolutely hated. The workload was ridiculous, the management was clueless, and I felt completely unappreciated. Every single day, I found something to complain about. And I made sure everyone around me knew it. My coworkers, my friends, even my family. No one was safe from my endless frustration. At first, they listened. Some even agreed. But over time, I started noticing a shift. People didn't seem as engaged in our conversations. They'd find reasons to leave early. I wasn't being invited to hangouts as often. The final wake-up call came when a close friend sat me down and said, "I care about you, but you're exhausting to be around." That hit hard. I thought I was just venting. But in reality, I was draining the life out of everyone around me. Don't be overheard complaining, not even to yourself. Marcus Aurelius. That was my first clue that complaining wasn't just a bad habit. It was a sign of weakness. It showed I was more focused on problems than solutions. And the truth is, people don't admire complainers. They admire problem solvers. I saw this from the other side during a group project in college. One of my teammates, let's call him Mike, was the worst kind of complainer. Every meeting, he had something negative to say. The professor was unfair. The project was stupid. The workload was impossible. And guess what? His attitude was contagious. Suddenly, none of us wanted to put in the effort anymore. We weren't thinking about doing our best work. We just wanted to finish and get it over with. Mike's negativity sucked the motivation right out of the group. That was the moment I realized. I had been doing the same thing in my own life. Complaining wasn't just hurting me, it was poisoning the people around me. So I decided to change. Instead of complaining about my job, I started looking for ways to improve it. If I felt undervalued, I asked for feedback and worked toward a raise. If management was disorganized, I found small ways to streamline what I could control. And something amazing happened. People treated me differently. I started gaining respect instead of losing it. My relationships improved. And most importantly, I actually felt better. Because instead of wasting my energy on problems, I was putting it toward solutions. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. The bottom line? Life is full of problems. Everyone faces struggles. But complaining about them changes nothing. It just makes you look weak. The strong don't dwell on what's wrong. They figure out how to make it right. So ask yourself, do you want to be the person people admire or the one they avoid? If this message spoke to you, make a change today. And if you found this valuable, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's commit to a life of strength, respect, and action. Until next time, stay strong, stay stoic.